every brain glitch you might experience. Alice in Wonderland syndrome. You're walking through your apartment when suddenly your legs feel 6 feet longer. The ceiling is a mile high, the hallway looks like it might not end. You blink, shake your head, try to recalibrate. Everything's warped, but stable. It feels like someone swapped your normal apartment for a dream sequence. This is Alice in Wonderland syndrome. And no, it's not a metaphor. It's a legit neurological condition where your brain's spatial perception goes full Lewis Carroll. Objects shrink, distances stretch, your own limbs might feel like they belong to someone else or to a video game avatar running with maxed out field of view. It's not a hallucination. Everything is where it is. But your brain's internal measuring tape? Absolutely borked. Usually tied to migraine, seizures, or sometimes just weird sleep cycles, it's like reality turns elastic for a few terrifying, fascinating minutes. You're fully aware, but it doesn't make it feel any less glitchy. You just have to wait for the system to reboot. Lexical gustatory synesthesia. Someone says the word calendar, you instantly taste scrambled eggs. They say Wednesday. Boom. Coconut. Your brain's playing a flavor-based word game, and you're not in control. This isn't some quirky association game. This is lexical gustatory synesthesia, where your brain crosswires language with flavor. You don't imagine the taste, you actually experience it. The words trigger involuntary taste sensations. For some people, names are spicy, numbers are sour, abstract nouns taste like burnt toast. The condition is ultra-rare but very real. It can be delightful, distracting, or just completely chaotic. And while it might sound like a novelty, imagine trying to have a serious meeting while randomly tasting anchovies, paper clips, or mango yogurt every time someone talks. It's not flavor you can escape. It's baked into your vocabulary. Visual snow. You wake up, open your eyes, and everything looks fuzzy. Not blurry, not out of focus, just covered in static. Like the world has a layer of television snow on it. No matter where you look, the grainy film follows. Welcome to visual snow syndrome, where your brain overlays a constant layer of visual noise over your perception of reality. Like your retina is broadcasting on the wrong channel. It's not painful, it's just disorienting. It doesn't go away when you blink, or when you look at a wall, or when you close your eyes. It's there, all the time, like the universe forgot to anti-alias itself. Researchers still don't fully understand what causes it, but it's thought to be a neurological sensory processing issue. Your brain trying to show you the world, but turning the contrast up to 11. You're awake, but you're watching a constant static overlay. Add in bright lights, headaches, and visual distractions, and you've got a 24/7 visual filter no one asked for. It's like your brain put reality in lo-fi mode, and then lost the remote. Foreign accent syndrome. You wake up, say good morning, and the voice that comes out isn't yours. It has an accent. Maybe British, maybe French, maybe indecipherable. The weirdest part? You can't turn it off. This is foreign accent syndrome, one of the rarest and most bizarre brain glitches ever recorded. Usually following a brain injury or stroke, the language centers in your brain reboot with the dials twisted. Your mouth moves the same, but your rhythm, tone, and pronunciation get completely remapped. It's not faked, not imagined, and not controllable. It can be permanent. Imagine the identity crisis of speaking in a voice that feels not you, like someone else has taken over your vocal cords. And no, Duolingo had nothing to do with it. It's your voice, just recompiled in a new dialect patch. Some people adapt. Others feel like they lost part of their identity to a glitch they can't reverse. Over time, the accent might shift again, or never go away. You're not performing, you're debugging. Tetris effect. You spent the day playing Tetris, or Candy Crush, or organizing books, or driving cross-country. Then you close your eyes to sleep, and it's still happening. The blocks keep falling, the road keeps stretching, the matching tiles keep swapping themselves. Even your dreams are in level design mode. This is the Tetris effect, when your brain gets so looped into a repetitive task that it continues simulating it long after you've stopped. It's like your brain goes, cool pattern, let's rehearse it forever. It's most noticeable after long, sustained sessions of a visual or physical task, games, routines, even manual labor. Your mind just keeps playing without you. The effect is harmless but disorienting, like muscle memory, but visual. Sometimes it helps you master a task. Other times it just invades your sleep like a screensaver you can't disable. Your brain, always optimizing, starts doing the task better in your head than you ever did in real life. It doesn't want to stop, and you can't convince it to. Earworms. It started as a casual listen. Just a snippet, a jingle, a chorus, a 3-second clip of a song you barely like. Now it's looped 312 times in your head. Congratulations, you have an earworm. Your brain's auditory loop got hijacked by an involuntary melody, usually catchy, sometimes annoying, always impossible to delete. The worst part? Trying not to think about it only makes it worse. It's like mental quicksand. The more you struggle, the deeper it burrows. Some researchers think it's your brain attempting to resolve unfinished patterns. Others say it's just poor impulse control. Either way, enjoy the soundtrack. It might last hours or days. Some people report loops that return months later, like cursed MP3s stored in their soul. Music you didn't ask for, but can't skip. And the more you try to override it with another song, the more your brain becomes a cursed shuffle loop. Mandela effect. You remember it clearly. The Monopoly man had a monocle. Darth Vader said, "Luke, I am your father." It was definitely Berenstein Bears. Except none of that is true. That's the Mandela effect. A shared false memory experienced by groups of people. It's not just you. Entire communities vividly remember things that never happened. It's named after people misremembering the date of Nelson Mandela's death. But now it's a whole genre of reality slippage. Your memory isn't a hard drive. It's a messy, editable Google Doc that everyone can type in at once. And sometimes the edits go viral. Maybe your brain conflated details. Maybe pop culture reinforced it. Or maybe we did glitch into the wrong universe at some point, and we're all just rolling with it. Either way, it raises the question, how much of your memory is true, and how much is just consensus hallucination? Semantic satiation. Say apple. Now say it again. Again, again, again. Apple, apple, apple. What is an apple? That's semantic satiation. When repeating a word causes it to lose all meaning. Your brain short circuits the sound to meaning connection, and you're left with a pile of alien phonemes. It's like language is a video file and you kept scrubbing back and forth until it glitched. The word melts. Not literally, but psychologically. It's the audio version of staring at a painting until it turns into blobs. Language has to feel automatic. When you interrupt that rhythm with repetition, the brain just tosses the whole concept out the window. Congrats! You broke a word. You can fix it, but it takes time. Let your brain recompile its language drivers. Until then, apples are just noise. The fictive loop. You finish a book and mourn a character like they were your childhood dog. You get genuinely angry at a villain who never existed. You cry about a dragon who died in a CGI explosion. This is the fictive loop. When fictional experiences trigger real, lasting emotions. Your brain doesn't care whether it was a movie, a novel, or a fever dream. If it felt real, it gets logged like it was real. Neurologically, emotions don't distinguish between fact and fiction. You're literally grieving someone who never lived. And that heartbreak, 100% real. Stories are simulations for emotion. They train us for situations we may never experience. And that includes pain, loss, and growth over things that were made up. Fiction hits like fact because your brain doesn't see the border. And the more immersive the story, the stronger the imprint. You walk away changed. Not by what happened, but by what your brain believed happened. Derealization. The room looks normal, the lights are on, the colors are real, but somehow everything feels fake, like a movie set, like a simulation, like you're watching your own life from behind a glass wall. This is derealization, a dissociative glitch where your emotional connection to the world temporarily vanishes. People feel robotic, voices sound far away, time stretches and warps. Nothing feels wrong, but nothing feels real. It's usually triggered by stress, panic attacks, or trauma. And while it can feel existentially terrifying, it's not dangerous, just disorienting. Like reality is buffering. It passes, but in the moment, you feel disconnected from everything. You know you're alive, but you don't feel like you're in it, like you're just watching through someone else's eyes. And no matter how hard you try, you can't emotionally plug back in. It's like being homesick for your own existence. Complex things your brain may not understand. How does Wi-Fi actually work? Wi-Fi sends tiny waves through the air, kind of like radio but faster. Your router takes internet stuff, like videos or messages, turns it into ones and zeros, and blasts it out using these waves. Your phone catches those waves, reads the ones and zeros, and turns them into cat videos. Magic? Kind of. Your phone doesn't just listen, it talks back, like, play the next video. Open that app. It sends its own waves back to the router. So it's like a super fast conversation, happening billions of times per second. You may be wondering how your phone and the router don't get confused with all the other phones and routers. I'll explain. Simple. Channels. Your Wi-Fi picks a lane, and theirs picks a different one. Newer Wi-Fi is even smarter. It focuses signals straight at your phone, like a laser. Pew pew! Can people steal your Wi-Fi? Not really, because it's locked with a secret code. Only your phone and router know the password, so anyone else just hears scrambled noise. And that's Wi-Fi. Invisible waves that carry memes, videos, and your search history through the air. Now you know. How do credit cards work? Credit cards are weird. You just swipe a piece of plastic and boom, you just bought a $7 iced coffee using money you don't have. How is that possible? Well, a credit card is basically saying, hey bank, spot me $7 real quick. I swear I'll pay you back. And the bank's like, okay, but if you don't, I'm charging you interest and maybe your soul. You're not spending your money, you're borrowing the bank's money and paying it back later. When you tap, swipe, or insert the card, your card sends your card number plus secret chip info to the store's payment system. The store says, hey, bank, is this person good for $7? The bank checks your account and says, yep, send it through. Or, nope, decline. Shame them publicly. At the end of the month, your bank sends you a bill for everything you borrowed. If you pay it all back, no problem. If you don't, you pay interest, which is basically a crazy tax for not paying on time. The longer you wait, the more you owe. Like a financial snowball that only rolls downhill fast. Some cards give you rewards like points, cash back, or airline miles. Cool, right? Except if you forget to pay and get charged interest, you just spent $500 in airline points to buy a $6 granola bar. So, yeah, credit cards are like magical rectangles that buy stuff now, make you pay later, and charge you if you mess up. Use it right equals good credit score. Use it wrong equals you owe Visa your kidney.
Why are people left-handed? Only about 10% of people are left-handed, but why?
Your brain has two halves, left and right. And get this, the left side of your brain controls the right side of your body, and the right side controls the left. In most people, the left brain is the boss, so they end up right-handed. But in lefties, the right brain is a little louder, so the left hand gets the spotlight. That's it.
How do planes stay in the air?
Okay, so planes are metal sky whales that weigh hundreds of thousands of pounds, and they just float? You're telling me a flying tube full of people, luggage, and tiny pretzels doesn't fall straight out of the sky? Let's unpack. Planes' wings use something called lift, which is a fancy science word for air pushing you up harder than gravity pulls you down. Here's the trick. The top of the wing is curved. The bottom is flat. Air moves faster over the top, slower under the bottom. This creates low pressure on top and high pressure underneath. And boom, the plane gets pushed up like a balloon getting punched from below. That's lift, the reason planes yeet themselves into the sky and stay there. The engines, or the giant spinny jet vacuums, create thrust. They push the plane forward really fast. The faster you go, the more air hits the wings, the more lift you get. No speed equals no lift equals metal sky whale becomes metal ground pancake. Planes fly because of four forces. Lift pushes up, weight pulls down, thrust pushes forward, drag tries to ruin your life. Those little flaps on the wings, they move to change how much lift you get. During takeoff and landing, the wings go full transformer mode to stay stable.
How do dreams work?
Dreams are straight up weird. You go to sleep thinking about breakfast and wake up like, I just gave birth to a dragon on a trampoline while my third grade teacher cheered. How? Why? When you knock out for the night, your body rests, but your brain still cooking. In fact, it goes harder when you're asleep. During a phase called REM sleep, or rapid eye movement, your brain starts lighting up like a Christmas tree on Red Bull. That's when dreams happen. Your brain has a giant simulation engine built in. During REM, it replays memories, smashes random thoughts together, runs fake scenarios, and throws in your ex for no reason. It's like your brain goes, all right, time to test some stuff that makes absolutely no sense. Boom. Dream. Scientists don't really know why we dream. But here are the top theories. Memory sorting. Dreams help organize your thoughts like a messy desktop. Emotional therapy. Your brain's like, let's process that trauma by turning it into a talking walrus. Threat practice. Ancient brain says, let's rehearse being chased by tigers, just in case. Honestly, it might be all of them at once, because your brain's logic filter is asleep too. During dreaming, the part that says, that doesn't make sense, is off. So anything goes. You can fly, breathe underwater, or fight dinosaurs with a spoon. Totally normal. Dreams are your brain's way of processing, simulating, and playing out life.
What even is a black hole?
Black holes are the final boss of space. Like, imagine something so heavy, so dense, so extra that not even light can escape it. You shine a flashlight at a black hole, too bad. That light is gone, yeeted into the abyss, deleted from reality. Take a giant star. Now let it live its life, burn through its fuel, and get old and cranky. Eventually, the star goes supernova explosion, and the middle part collapses. But it doesn't just collapse, it implodes into itself like a cosmic sinkhole until it's infinitely small. This creates a black hole, a spot in space with so much gravity that it just eats everything. Black holes don't suck stuff in. They pull stuff in with pure gravity. Like Earth's gravity keeps the moon in orbit, a black hole's gravity is like, hey moon, come here, forever. Even light, which is the fastest thing in the universe, can't outrun it. That's why they're black, because light literally can't bounce back out. At the center is the singularity, a point that's infinitely dense and where physics just gives up. Time, broken. Space, bent, like spaghetti. Your understanding of reality, gone. Surrounding it is the event horizon, the point of no return. Once you cross it, game over. No signal, no comeback, just silence. Black holes are space vacuum cleaners that broke the laws of physics.
How do microwaves actually cook food?
Microwaves don't heat food like a fire or oven. Instead, they shoot invisible waves called, wait for it, microwaves into your food. These are electromagnetic waves, just like light and X-ray, but chunkier. They specifically target one thing, water. Why? Because water molecules are tiny, weird little dumbbells with a positive side and a negative side, like emotional people. When microwaves hit them, they start vibrating like they just heard a Taylor Swift breakup song, millions of times per second. That movement creates friction, and friction makes heat. Stuff with more water, like soup, heats fast. Stuff with no water, like dry bread, gets weird. Ever microwaved pizza crust? It turns into a tire. That's why. Also, microwaves don't go very deep, only about an inch or two. So that frozen lasagna, yeah, the outside's boiling, but the inside's still an ice cube.
You may be wondering,
Why does the plate spin? Because microwaves bounce around unevenly inside the box. If it didn't spin, half your food would be magma, the other half would still be in hibernation. So that little turntable, it's the real MVP, keeping your food from becoming a crime against God. So yeah, your microwave cooks food by violently shaking water molecules with invisible waves.
how does YouTube know what you want to watch?
YouTube is scary. You watch one video about raccoons, and suddenly your homepage is like, here's 87 more raccoons. Also, raccoons driving cars. Also, raccoons in space. How does it know? Every time you click, tap, pause, rewind, or cry during a video, YouTube takes notes. What you watched, how long you watched it, what you clicked before and after, whether you liked, commented, or just dipped halfway through. It's not a website. It's a stalker with a clipboard. YouTube's goal? Get you to click and stay. If you click but don't watch for long, no bueno. If you watch forever but didn't click, also meh. But if you click and binge, like it's Netflix in 2013, the algorithm's like, send this person more. Feed them. Your homepage is built by a supercomputer on energy drinks that mixes what you like, what people like you like, what's trending, what you watched 3 years ago at 2 a.m. during a crisis. And yes, it remembers everything. Even that video you regret watching. You know the one. YouTube also compares your habits to millions of other people. If 800,000 people who watched How to Tie a Tie also clicked on How to Adult, YouTube's like, welp, must be related. Recommends it to you instantly. It doesn't know why you want it. It just knows you do. YouTube suggests videos using a brain-melting algorithm, all to keep you watching forever. YouTube doesn't care what you watch. It just wants you to not stop.
Every manipulation technique your brain unconsciously falls for.
Gaslighting. Everyone's heard of gaslighting, but not everyone knows what it is and how they are being affected by it. Let me explain. Gaslighting is when someone messes with your sense of reality. It doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet, subtle. Like someone just gently rewriting the story over and over until you start to wonder if you're the problem. You remember something clearly, and they tell you it never happened. You try to explain how something made you feel, and they say you're being too sensitive, doing it not to disagree, but to make you question what's real. And over time, you start to believe them more than you believe yourself. That's what makes gaslighting so powerful. It doesn't come at you all at once. It's slow, one small moment at a time, one conversation, one look, one denial, and eventually you start second-guessing everything. Your memory, your emotions, your gut. It shows up in all kinds of relationships, romantic, family, even work. And it always follows the same pattern. Confusion, doubt, silence. Because if they can make you doubt your version of reality, it gets easier to control you. So what do? You get clear. You start writing things down. You trust how something made you feel, even if someone else tries to spin it. You don't need permission to believe your own experience. The more clearly you see what's happening, the harder it is for anyone to twist it. And once you stop explaining yourself to someone who's pretending not to understand, that's when you take your power back. Love bombing. This technique is less commonly known, but just as commonly used. Love bombing feels amazing, and that's exactly the problem. It starts with intensity. Not affection, not care, intensity. You're suddenly the center of someone's world. They're obsessed with you. They say you're perfect. They talk about forever on the second date. There's constant texting, late-night calls, huge compliments, sudden gifts, and it all moves so fast you barely have time to breathe. It doesn't feel like getting to know someone. It feels like getting swept away. And for a moment, it's hard to see anything wrong with it, because who doesn't want to be adored? But that's the point. Love bombing isn't about you. It's about creating a feeling, one that's hard to walk away from later. Because once you're hooked on the high, they change, they pull back, they go cold. You start wondering what you did to make it stop. You blame yourself for the shift and you try to win back the version of them that never actually existed. The one who said all the right thing, who knew exactly what you needed to hear. That version was the bait. This is how emotional control gets disguised as romance. It happens in toxic relationships, narcissistic dynamics, even trauma bonds. Love bombing isn't about love. It's about control disguised as intensity, wrapped in flattery. So how do you protect yourself? You slow down. You ask questions. You look at their patterns, not their promises. Real connection takes time, space, and honesty. It grows quietly, not in a rush. If someone tries to build something serious before trust even has time to form, it's not love. It's a performance, and you don't owe anyone an encore. Guilt tripping. Guilt tripping is one of the most common and sneakiest ways people try to control you. And the thing is, it doesn't usually look like manipulation. It's not someone yelling or demanding. It's more like a sigh, a pause, a quiet little, well, after everything I've done for you. They don't come right out and say it, but suddenly you feel like you've let them down, like you should have known better, like saying no makes you selfish or cold or ungrateful. That's how guilt tripping works. It's not about what you actually did. It's about making you feel like you've failed in some invisible way. Even if you were just setting a boundary, even if you were doing what's right for you, it turns care into currency, and your kindness becomes a debt you're always trying to repay. The worst part? It works, especially if you're empathetic. You feel the tension, the silence, the disappointment, and before you know it, you're apologizing for something you didn't even do, or agreeing to something you never wanted. It shows up everywhere, in families, relationships, friend groups, and it always has the same goal. If I can't make you say yes, I'll make you feel bad for saying no. So how do you deal with it? You pause. You take a step back from the guilt and ask yourself, did I actually do something wrong? Or am I just being made to feel like I did? Real guilt comes from your own values. Manipulated guilt, that's someone else's control tactic. You're allowed to hold your boundary, even if someone else tries to punish you for it. Triangulation. Triangulation is what happens when someone pulls a third person into a conflict, instead of talking to you directly, making a sort of social triangle. It doesn't feel like an argument. It feels like a side conversation you were never invited to. Suddenly, you're hearing things like, well, Sarah agrees with me, or everyone thinks you're overreacting. That's not communication. That's strategy. Triangulation creates this dynamic where you're not just dealing with one person. You're now up against a whole invisible team. And because you're outnumbered, your voice starts to feel smaller. You start wondering if you're the one who's being difficult, or dramatic, or wrong. And that's the whole point. When someone triangulates, they're not trying to solve the problem. They're trying to win it. By building alliances, by shifting the focus, by making it seem like you're the common denominator. This tactic shows up a lot in toxic family systems. Like when a parent complains about one sibling to another, instead of having a direct conversation. It also shows up in romantic relationships, especially when one partner tries to involve a friend, an ex, or even a therapist to validate their side. Suddenly, you're not just disagreeing with them, you're defending yourself against this whole narrative. And it's exhausting, because you're not just dealing with the actual issue anymore. You're now being dragged into someone else's storyline, with someone else holding the pen. So how do you stop it? You pull the triangle apart. Say this: if you have a problem with me, talk to me, not about me. Keep things direct. Keep them simple. You don't need to defend yourself to a third party you never even spoke to. You get to set the tone for your own conversation. And if someone refuses to meet you there, you're allowed to step out of the triangle completely. White Knight. The White Knight looks like a hero on the surface. They show up with answers, with concern, with solutions you didn't ask for. At first, it feels like they're helping you, like someone finally understands what you're going through. But that's only the setup. Because in toxic dynamics, the White Knight doesn't just help with problems. They create the problem themselves, just so they can be the one to fix it. They stir up conflict behind the scenes. They chip away at your confidence, then comfort you when you start to fall apart. They'll tell you someone's turning on you, and then offer to protect you from the fallout. They build the fire, then show up with the hose. Why? Because being the savior gives them power. And if you didn't need saving, they wouldn't have a role to play. It's subtle. You don't always see it happening because it's wrapped in care and concern. But their support comes with strings. It's not about you getting stronger. It's about you staying broken just long enough to keep them relevant. And if you start growing, if you set boundaries or solve your own problems, they might withdraw or turn cold or flip the script entirely and make you feel like you're ungrateful for everything they've done. So how do you deal with it? Start noticing the pattern. Do they step up when things fall apart, or do they quietly push things toward falling apart just so they can step in? Real support helps you rise. A white knight needs you on your knees. So take the help if it's genuine, but don't give up your power in the process. You don't need to be rescued. You just need room to stand on your own.
The silent treatment. Silence can be peaceful. It can be calming, respectful, needed. But the silent treatment, that's something different. It's not a pause. It's a punishment. It's what happens when someone uses absence to control you. They don't yell. They don't explain. They just go quiet, cold, distant, unreachable. And they stay that way until you give in. The silent treatment isn't about space. It's about power. You'll find yourself replaying everything you said, wondering what you did wrong. You'll feel pressure to fix it, even though you're not sure what it is. And that uncertainty, that's what makes it work. Because when someone refuses to communicate, you're left guessing. And eventually, you stop focusing on your own needs and start focusing entirely on how to get them to engage again. You apologize just to end the silence. You bend, you soften, you tiptoe. Not because it's your fault, but because the quiet is unbearable. And for the person using it, that silence becomes a tool. It says, I control when this relationship feels safe. I control when you feel seen. And if I withdraw, you'll chase me. It can show up in romantic relationships, with friends, even at work, anywhere someone wants to win without having a conversation. So how do you deal with it? You stop chasing the noise. You name what's happening. You say, if you're upset, I'm open to talking, but I won't be punished with silence. And then you hold your ground. Because communication is a two-way street. And if someone refuses to speak unless they're being agreed with, they're not looking for connection. They're looking for control.
Breadcrumbing. Breadcrumbing is when someone gives you just enough attention to keep you hooked, but never enough to actually move forward. They'll send a "hey" text every few days, react to your story, compliment you randomly, just enough to remind you they exist. But when it comes to making plans, showing up, or committing to anything real, it's always vague, always later, always just out of reach. It's like emotional clickbait. You keep checking in, hoping this time it'll be different, that maybe now they're finally ready to show up, but they're not. They're just dropping another crumb. The goal of breadcrumbing isn't connection, it's control. It keeps you emotionally invested while they stay unaccountable. You get stuck in a loop of anticipation and letdown. And even though you're not being treated well, it's hard to walk away because they never really end it either. They don't reject you. They just stall you. And that uncertainty keeps you hoping, waiting, checking your phone at 2 a.m. because maybe this time they'll actually follow through. Breadcrumbing can happen in dating, friendships, even professional relationships. And it's not always malicious. Sometimes people do it out of fear, insecurity, or just because they like the attention. But the result is the same. You're left in limbo while they keep all the power. So how do you deal with it? You stop chasing the trail. If someone's interest only shows up in flashes, if they always leave you guessing, you don't need to decode it. You just need to decide it's not enough. Consistency speaks louder than charm, and you deserve more than crumbs. The Darvo method. Darvo is one of the most disorienting manipulation tactics out there. And once you know what it is, you'll start seeing it everywhere. The term stands for deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. It's a psychological sleight of hand, a way for someone to flip the entire script the moment you try to hold them accountable. Here's how it plays out. You bring up something that hurt you, calmly, respectfully, just trying to talk. Step 1, they deny it. That never happened. You're making things up, or you're being way too dramatic. Then comes step 2. They attack you. They go after your tone, your timing, your past. Suddenly, it's not about what they did. It's about how you brought it up. And then comes the flip. They make themselves the victim. You're not the one who got hurt. They are. They're being attacked. They can't do anything right. They act like your honesty is cruelty. And now you're the one who has to explain yourself. That's Darvo. It's not just emotional manipulation, it's narrative control. It turns any conversation about harm into a performance where the person being called out gets to play the hero, the martyr, or the victim. And if you're on the receiving end, it can make you feel confused, ashamed, even guilty for speaking up. You start wondering if you were too harsh, if maybe you did come off wrong. You start defending your tone instead of your truth. So, how do you deal with it? First, don't take the bait. If the conversation suddenly becomes all about their pain, their suffering, their offense, pause. Return to your point. Stick to the facts. Say, I'm willing to talk about this, but not if the original issue keeps getting buried. Darvo works when it causes confusion. It fails when you stay clear. Because accountability isn't an attack, and truth isn't cruelty.
Every mind trap that gets you.
Let's get right into it. The sunk cost fallacy. You went to law school, 3 years, 6 figures of debt. You passed the bar, landed a decent firm, and you hate every second of it. The work is soul grinding. The culture is toxic. You dread Mondays like they're a funeral. But every time you think of leaving, the same thought traps you. I worked too hard to give this up. That's the sunk cost fallacy. You're confusing effort with obligation. Because you paid a steep price to be here, you assume the only way to honor that cost is to stay. But the cost is already paid. Staying miserable doesn't get you a refund. It just adds interest. This fallacy turns high achievers into high-functioning prisoners. You think quitting would make it all a waste. But what's actually wasteful? Sacrificing your future to justify a decision you made 5 years ago with a totally different version of yourself. You're not walking away from value. You're walking toward alignment, toward sanity, toward a life that fits the current version of you. And no, you're not throwing it away. You're using what you learned to stop sinking deeper. Confirmation bias, the echo chamber of doom. Imagine this. You believe something, anything. Let's say you think coffee is good for you, so you type "is coffee healthy" into a search engine. First result, coffee linked to lower risk of depression. Boom. You feel smart, informed, validated. Now pause. Did you search for the truth or for confirmation? Welcome to confirmation bias, your brain's favorite self-reinforcing trick. Instead of asking, what's accurate, you ask, what makes me feel right? And then you subconsciously cherry-pick data, experts, opinions, anything that agrees with you. Anything that doesn't, you downplay, ignore, or declare invalid. It's not just coffee. It's politics, religion, conspiracy theories, dietary choices, which sports team is superior. You think you're being logical, but you're actually running an emotional software script that says, never admit you might be wrong. This is how we build echo chambers. Tiny worlds made of identical thoughts bouncing off the walls. And the more you hear the same opinion repeated, the more true it feels. But repetition isn't proof. Consensus isn't accuracy. If you want clarity, do something radical. Actively seek out opposing views. Ask yourself how you'd know if you were wrong. Truth isn't comfortable. That's how you know it's real. Learned helplessness. Picture a dog in a cage. Every time it tries to escape, it gets shocked. Eventually, it just lies down. No more trying. Even if the door swings open, the dog stays put. That's learned helplessness. Now imagine you. You fail at something. Once, twice, maybe 3 times. Rejected job applications, awkward first dates, goals that flop. At some point, you stop trying. Not because you can't succeed, but because failure taught you to stop believing in the possibility. You tell yourself, I'm just not good at this. You confuse temporary pain with permanent truth. Learned helplessness doesn't mean you are powerless. It means you feel powerless. And those feelings become bars in a cage that doesn't even exist anymore. The worst part? You might not even notice you've given up. You just start living smaller. But there's a way out. It starts with testing the lock. Do the thing one more time. Apply again. Say what you meant to say. Try badly and try loud. Fail forward. Because once you realize the shocks have stopped, you stop being the dog. And you start being the person who leaves the cage and never looks back. And yes, the door was open the whole time. The gambler's fallacy. You're at the roulette table. The ball's landed on red 5 times in a row. People are buzzing. Black has to be next. They whisper like it's prophecy. You bet big. You're not even thinking. You just feel it. And then red again. That's the gambler's fallacy. It's your brain assigning memory to randomness. We think the universe keeps a scoreboard, that it's secretly balancing the scales. It isn't. Every spin is its own independent chaos. Past results don't predict future outcomes, especially in random systems. But this fallacy goes beyond casinos. You think you're due for a good relationship because your last 3 were train wrecks. You believe this job interview will go better because the last one didn't. You think life owes you symmetry. It doesn't. The universe isn't a slot machine with a guilt complex. It doesn't reward perseverance with fairness. It doesn't track your streaks. And clinging to the idea that it does, that's how you keep gambling time, energy, hope on patterns that don't exist. You're not cursed. You're not lucky. You're just misreading chaos as narrative. The odds don't care how badly you want it. The flip doesn't remember the last one, and neither should you. Negativity bias. 10 people say your idea was great. One person calls it meh. Guess which comment keeps you up at 2 a.m.? That's negativity bias. Your brain is a threat detection machine from prehistoric times where noticing danger was literally survival. Back then, ignoring one rustle in the bushes could get you eaten. Fast forward to now, and your brain's still doing it. Only now, the tigers are tweets. You're wired to give more attention, emotion, and memory to negative events. One bad review hits harder than 10 good ones. One awkward moment at the party makes you forget the fun. You remember rejection way longer than praise, and it's not your fault. It's biology. But if you don't know it's happening, it starts controlling your entire mood. You live like everything's falling apart, even if 90% of your life is actually fine. It also warps your perception of people. You zero in on flaws. You expect disappointment. You scan your inbox for conflict. And pretty soon, your whole world is just filtered through caution tape. The only antidote? Actively notice the good. Count it. Name it. Write it down. It won't come naturally, but that's the point. You're not being realistic. You're being hijacked by an ancient alarm system that forgot how to turn off. The halo effect. You meet someone new. They're charismatic, great smile, amazing taste in playlists, and before you even realize it, they're perfect, funny, insightful, emotionally mature. Basically a walking TED Talk, except they're not. Welcome to the halo effect. When your brain takes one positive trait, attractiveness, charm, intelligence, and uses it as a shortcut to assume all the other traits are just as glowing. That's how we end up trusting people who shouldn't be trusted. That's how bad ideas become gospel when delivered by someone in a nice suit. That's how con artists and cult leaders work. They start with one beam of light, and your brain fills in the rest. You don't judge people by who they are. You judge them by the glow you want them to have. And this doesn't just apply to people. Companies, politicians, brands. You see one clean logo or clever ad and assume competence, ethics, and value. But shiny isn't the same as good. The halo effect isn't about gullibility. It's about speed. Your brain loves shortcuts, but shortcuts often skip the truth. Slow down. Ask more questions. Don't let one bright spot blind you to everything else. Hyperbolic discounting. You promise yourself you'll go to bed early. Eat better. Start that novel. But then it's midnight. There's ice cream in the freezer, and Netflix says one more episode, and somehow you say yes. Again, that's hyperbolic discounting. Your brain's tendency to prioritize instant gratification over future rewards, even when the future reward is clearly better. In theory, $120 next month is better than $100 today. But your brain sees now as real and later as foggy. Future you is abstract. Present you is hungry and tired. So present you wins. Again and again and again. That's why we stay up too late, save too little, scroll too long, and skip the gym. Not because we're lazy, but because our brain discounts the value of long-term gains dramatically, especially when the reward isn't immediate. You think you're just bad at discipline. You're not. You're wired for short-term survival, not long-term planning. Future you might as well be a stranger. But here's the twist. You can trick the system. Make the future feel closer. Visualize rewards. Use timers. Set traps. Tie pleasure to progress. Because willpower alone won't win. You need to build a bridge from now to later. Otherwise, you'll keep trading gold for gum. And finally, number 1, cognitive dissonance. You call yourself a good person. You also just ghosted someone who trusted you. And now, somewhere between your ribcage and your pride, there's an itch you can't scratch. That's cognitive dissonance. It's the mental tension that sparks when your actions and your identity don't match. Your brain hates contradiction, so it rushes to resolve the discomfort. Not by changing your behavior, but by rewriting your story. You tell yourself, they were too clingy anyway, or I'm just bad at texting. You morph from ghoster to justified escape artist in record time. And just like that, the dissonance quiets. For now. But it's not just relationships. You believe in honesty, but you lie at work. You see yourself as rational, but you rage buy crypto because your friend did. You think you're above gossip, then you forward the screenshot. Dissonance everywhere. The truth? Everyone does this. What matters is whether you notice, whether you stop and ask, do my actions reflect who I actually want to be? Or am I just storytelling my way into comfort? You don't have to be perfect, but you do have to be awake, especially when your brain is busy rewriting the plot.
If you enjoyed this video, YouTube knows you'll like this video right here, so just watch it.